Welcome back to the channel. Finally, everybody. This is Larry G, the Forgotten Angler, and I'm back. I've never gone anywhere, but I've just been super busy. I have not posted a video for months. I think the last one was from Hurricane Idalia, update out at Camp Far Away. But I'm back in Pensacola, and I have been fishing the past couple of months in a big tournament, the Beachfront Outdoors Fall Fishing Classic, which has been surf, bridge, and jetty fishing for Pompano and whiting, two categories. Aggregate of your top three fish, your three heaviest fish which got weighed, and the top three in each category were winners. I was very fortunate, extremely fortunate, to finish third by 0.05 pounds over Colt Smith. Just super lucky. But a crazy tournament, some crazy stuff happened the last week of the tournament. We'll talk about that. But that's where I've been. I've been fishing more, back and forth between Camp Far Away and our place here in Pensacola. And I'm just gonna give you a recap of the tournament, how things worked for me, my strategy, and how I ended up third. And at some point, thought I was gonna be second, but we had a late surge from the eventual winner of the tournament. More on that coming up here in just a second. Anyway, let's start with the tournament itself. The tournament waters were open from Gulf Shores, Alabama, all the way to St. George Island. That's a lot of water in a huge area. There were 5 bait and tackle shops where you could weigh in your fish. All the scales were calibrated. The problem with that much area and in this format was it's basically herding cats. So the weigh-in and the fish catching is basically trusted to the angler and his integrity. There's a lot of loopholes. People could be out in boats, people could be gang fishing, who knows, 5 guys could be fishing together, and they give all the big fish to one guy. Maybe only one guy's fishing in the tournament, but so be it. Those are the rules, and that's what we fish by. So again, a lot of loopholes, but I think it went pretty well. So the waters were wide, and I fished everywhere from Orange Beach all the way to St. George Island. I had one day when I fished 5 different spots looking for fish. So my strategy during the tournament was I moved a lot. If I wasn't on fish within 45 minutes to an hour in a spot, I moved. And that move might have been 100 yards east or west, or it might have been pack up the truck and go to another beach to look for fish. And I kind of streamlined everything. I fished 2 rods, probably 95% of the tournament. Reason being, for me personally, fishing 3 or 4 rods, I think there's too much going on. And if you watch enough YouTube videos, which I try not to anymore, glad you're watching this one. When you're messing with your gear, when you have 4 rods set up, there's a lot of time spent rigging up baits and untangling lines and changing rigs. And again, if you've watched YouTube videos, you see a lot of rods going off while anglers are doing that stuff. So I made a decision to just fish 2 rods, and they were both Ninja Tackle daggers. I had an 11-footer and a 12-footer. Those are my go-tos. I'm gonna say I probably caught 99% of my fish during this tournament on these 2 rods. The 11-footer to me is my favorite, but the 12-footer is for throwing the bomb casts. And on that rod, I had a Spin Fisher long cast right here. And this will hold 380 yards of 20-pound braid, which is what I have on here. This is Power Pro Super Slick, 20-pound. And this is the 5000 model. And this is the reel that I had on my 12-foot Ninja Tackle dagger. On my 11-footer, I had Beyond Braid 20-pound. Looks like I lost some during the tournament. But I fished this Daiwa BG 5000 on my 11-footer, and those 2 rods got it done. 2 very reliable reels, really good drag systems on them, super smooth. And those were the 2 rods that I threw. I brought a couple other rods with me every day, but for the most part, I only had 2 rods in the spikes. And I will guarantee you, I'm I may have missed 5 or 6 eats during the entire tournament because I was only fishing 2 rods. So that was my strategy. The other part of my strategy was that I simplified all my rigs. I didn't fish any double drop rigs, maybe a couple times on a couple different days, but for the most part it was all single drop rigs, and minimal jewelry and floats on them, almost naked most of the time, which means I didn't have a lot of floats or beads on my leader on my single drops. I like to fish the Eagle Claw 197 2/0 hooks, and for baits I was using, this was the hot bait during the tournament right here, this Easy Shrimp Power Lime from Fish Bites. This is what they were on, either just by itself, or I think it was a little more effective with fresh frozen cut shrimp. This is what I have left of one of my bags that I was fishing with. So that was one of my baits, and then your other standard baits. Sand fleas, of course, were very effective during the tournament, but primarily fresh frozen shrimp, Fish Bites, sand fleas, and some ghost shrimp when you could find them. So that's what I caught pretty much all my fish on during the tournament. That's the gear and the baits I was using. I did not use Sputniks except maybe 2 days I threw Sputniks. I've got a reason for that. I was throwing a lot of 3 and 4 ounce pyramid weights most days, sometimes 2 ounce. I like to get away with as little weight as possible on my rigs because I think it helps me detect the hits better on my rods. Heavier weights hold everything in place, and I think even a light eat, sometimes you're going to miss those. So I like to throw as light a weight as possible. So that was the gear I was using and the baits I was using. As far as the water I was fishing, there were a lot of rumors early in the tournament that people were finding fish way out as far as they could cast, and that turned out to be true. But what I decided to do was research areas and a lot of walking and on the bike, the fat bike. So the decision I made was to find dark blue water, the deep water, as close to the beach as I could find. And those were the spots that I was concentrating on, particularly, I'm gonna say last week of October, first week of November. It was just amazing fishing during that 2-week period for me. And that's when I caught all my weight fish. I caught tons of pompano. And during that 2-week period, I was catching a limit of legal pompano every day. Just wasn't keeping a limit. Once you stuff your freezer, I mean, it gets kind of ridiculous. But I was catching a lot of 11 and a half, 12 and a half. I don't like keeping the fish unless they're close to 13 inches. Everything else I throw back. But tons of fish being caught during that time frame. And my weight fish were all caught basically in one spot using one technique. And that's what got me on the board. And then I stayed there for weeks until the end of the tournament when I got bumped the last week down to 3rd place from 2nd. First place was way off the front for the entire tournament. Since the 2nd week of the tournament, he had 10 plus pounds of fish with 3 fish. I was 8.6 something, and it stayed that way for a long time. And I was just barely ahead of Colt Smith for a long time by 0.05 pounds. So I just dumb luck. Colt fishes over Mexico Beach way, I know. And I did fish Mexico Beach. I fished St. George Island. I fished Okaloosa, I fished Perdido, I fished everywhere. So that was my strategy. That's how I caught my fish. That's where I caught my fish. And let's get into some of the logistics of some of the stuff that happened the last week of the tournament, because there were some questions raised. And I was the squeaky wheel, not just on my behalf. There were a lot of anglers who had concerns about some stuff that was going on. So let's talk about that right now. So this is part of the issue with the weigh-in process and why I was concerned with those 2 3.88 pound pompano. Another angler that I know, who will remain disclosed, as well as myself and experience I had, he, one of the first fish he weighed in was submitted twice by the bait shop. So he had two fish, the same weight. It was actually the same fish, but the shop submitted it 2 times. And he didn't really think much about it because the fish weren't big enough to probably win in the end, so he just let it stand, which is fine. If you're not going to win, that's not a big deal. But it raised an issue, and that was a red flag very early in the tournament. One of the first 2 weeks this happened. From my point of view, the first 2 fish that I brought in to get weighed at one of the 5 shops, I brought them in. There was a kid in there. He weighed the fish for me and got on his laptop and went in. When the fish are weighed, the shop goes into the Fishing Chaos app, and they pull up your account in the tournament, and they input your fish numbers, the weight and type of fish. And then it gets put into the system, and that system automatically weighs your top 3 fish and then posts standings so you know where you stand. So I brought in my first 2 fish. I didn't really understand the system. And the kid I was dealing with said, "You're good to go, I got you in." And I went home, and I didn't see myself in the standings. And then the next day, I checked again, and I still wasn't in the standings. So I got a hold of Beach Bum Outdoors and said, "Hey, I had 2 fish weighed. They're not in the results," which turned into a deal. They got a hold of the shop that I went to. The person who was supposed to input the information wasn't there that day, and the other employees were supposed to be writing everything down. Well, I don't think that this kid wrote the fish weights down, and he forgot to hit submit when he put the information in the system. And this is right at the start of the tournament. So right off the bat, I'm like, we got problems here. My first 2 fish that I weighed are not in the system. They ended up having some weights written down on a piece of paper, a notebook, through the weekend. So when that person that came in that did that for them, put the numbers in the Fishing Chaos app, came in, they would put them in. Well, I think they were just random numbers written down without names. So I don't know what they put in for me, but they put in a couple of weights, and they ended up not being big enough to count in my overall, but still it was a problem. So all these things that happened in the beginning led to questions about the weigh-in process, which is why I and some others were so skeptical towards the end of the tournament when we saw some things happening. So just some things they need to clean up for next year. All right, let's get to the last week of the tournament when all the craziness went down. So for weeks, things remained the same in the top 5 or 6 anglers on the Pompano side of things. Whiting side of things, I think I ended up 11th. But the whiting side of things changed dramatically the last week because so many big whiting were being caught, primarily east of where I was fishing, way east, to the point where I wasn't going to drive to that spot. But I caught big whiting out that way earlier in the tournament, but when I came back west, we just weren't finding the whiting. So the last week, I'm in second place. The eventual second place is leading. And on Monday morning of the last week, the tournament ended on the Thursday, November 30th. I pop open the standings in the Fishing Chaos app, which is where the tournament was being submitted, or weights were being submitted, was the Fishing Chaos. And that's where the standings were located. 2 3.88 pound pompano were caught by the same angler and posted on Monday morning, which, of course, not only me, but a lot of other people, including the people running the tournament at Beach Bum Outdoors, thought was potentially suspect. It seemed very odd to me. And I'll talk about more of why I thought that might have been an issue. So a new angler shows up, 2 3.88 pound pompano and a 1 point something, puts him in the second place. And immediately I'm thinking to myself, how do you post 2 3.88 pound pompano in the same day? And those are the 2 biggest fish of the tournament caught on the Monday morning of the last week of the tournament after 8 weeks. So I expressed my concern, not only my concern, but other anglers' concerns, to the tournament director and the people in charge of running the tournament over at Beach Bum Outdoors. We had a conversation back and forth. They assured me that the fish were supposedly caught in a couple different places at different times. weighed in at different times, and that all anglers who were winners at the end of the tournament were going to have to take a lie detector test, which I thought was fine, but as most of you know, lie detector tests are not permissible in court, but it's better than nothing. So went with it. So now I'm in third place. This new angler is in second. The original leader of the tournament on the Pompano side is still leading. Sunday night, a cold front came in. Monday, the cold front passed through. The fishing was still good on Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the last 3 days of the tournament, I fished from Perdido to Okaloosa all day, all 3 days, and the bite had completely shut down where I was fishing. Completely. I did not get one eat those 3 days. I caught one small stingray. The rest of the time I was just sitting there watching my rods. Okay. Wednesday of the last week, the day before the tournament ends, I check results. We have a new leader in the tournament. This is when the fishing had completely shut down everywhere I'd been, and I'd covered, I don't know, 60 miles of beach fishing. The kid that was in second place, I say kid, I think he was probably about 18 or 19 years old. His first year fishing surf, by the way. He catches a 2.8 and posts it on Wednesday. He's now the leader of the tournament. Okay, so now at this point, I'm like, something's going on. So I go into Fishing Chaos, and you're able to check the timestamps when these fish were submitted and weighed. So I look at the timestamps on his fish. The first 3.88 pound pompano was weighed in on Sunday evening. This is the last week. Sunday evening at 5:15 p.m. The second 3.88 pound pompano, the same exact weight, the two biggest fish of the tournament, was weighed in the next Monday morning at 8:15 a.m. So I sent an email off to Corey over at Beach Bum Outdoors. By the way, he was awesome, very understanding, and understood our concerns, not just mine, but ours, and followed up thoroughly on my questions. And I flat wrote in the email that I think this is bullshit. He weighs a 3.88 Sunday night and another one Monday morning. Like, seriously? And then weighs it in Monday morning. Now, here's my thinking. If you are in second place after another 3.88 pound pompano on Monday morning, why in the world would you leave that spot and go weigh in that fish when you just caught a near 4-pounder that puts you in second place? All you need is another 2-pounder to get in the first place. But whatever. For some reason, this angler went to the shop and weighed his fish in the morning, which was super, super duper. Like, to me, I was like, it can't even be a coincidence. It's so strange. Okay. I expressed my concerns to Corey and the crew at Beach Bum Outdoors. They assure me that they're following up on it, which they did, and I'm grateful for that. And at that point, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to have to accept whatever decisions are made. Again, the tournament was so loose. People could have been out in boats. Who knows where they could have been catching fish. So, okay, let's move on to the award ceremony. Awards were this past Saturday at Beach Bum Outdoors. All winners had to be there to take a lie detector test to collect your cash. Now, there's a lot of money on the line. So $5,000 for first place, $2,000 for second, $1,000 for third in the pompano category, and it was $2,000, $1,000, and $500 for the top 3 spots in whiting. One of the anglers was on both podiums. That's a sweet job. So I get to Beach Bum Outdoors, and the other anglers are there already, and we talk a little bit about what happened. Without going into details, we had some good discussions about what our opinions were on the big fish that were caught and submitted over the past couple of days. Anyway, without getting into all the rhetoric, we all take our lie detector tests, and everybody passes, including the angler that caught the big Pompano Sunday, Monday. Beach Bum Outdoors investigated the bait and tackle shop where those fish had been weighed in. And what they did, when your fish were weighed, they clipped the tails off so you couldn't bring them back in to get them weighed again. So we all took our lie detector tests. Everybody passed. And at that point, first place $5,000 and then a $1,500 roughly retail value custom beautiful beach cart that was built by Brian Sorrell at Deerfield Fabrication, one of our sponsors. Again, a shout out to all the sponsors and all the anglers, the staff at Beach Bum Outdoors. Thanks to all the shops that supported the tournament and helped us weigh in our fish. For the most part, everybody was super cool. Yeah, great tournament. If you have any comments about this video or about what went down during the tournament, please leave them below. I'll answer them the best I can. If you have questions, give the video a like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. Be much appreciated. Anyway, it's good to be back. I've got tons of video footage from the months past that I'll try and get some videos up for you. I've just been busy. Always busy for a retired guy. Busy having fun, trying to anyway. Larry's the Forgotten Angler. I'm out.